Hello everyone, how you doing? It's Bill with the Voniverse. This is part 2 in my Genesis ranking series. In this video we're going to focus on the studio albums from 1980 through 1997. There's 6 albums and I'm going to go from 6 to 1, and 1 being my favorite of this period. Another disclaimer just to get this out of the way. Again, this is my list. This is how I'm ranking them today. It could change on any given day, I guess, but right now this is how I'm ranking them, and I'm sure everyone has different opinions, so I'd love to hear what your ranking would be. So put it down in the comments below, or shoot me or shoot a video and make a video response. So I want to thank everyone who watched part 1. That was my ranking of Genesis studio albums from 1969 through 1978. Got a lot of very kind feedback on that video, and I just want to thank everyone who watched. Hope you enjoyed it. And let's get started with part 2. So here's the albums we're going to be looking at today. So coming in at number 6 is, and I'm showing a CD because I don't have this on vinyl. It's the final studio album by Genesis. This is Calling All Stations. This came out in 1997. So Phil Collins leaves the band in 1992, or after they tour for the last studio with Phil, Cant Dance. So 1993, I guess, or 1994, somewhere around there, Phil leaves the band. Tony Banks and Mike Rutherford recruit Ray Wilson, formerly of the band Stiltskin. He becomes the lead singer. They put out this album in 1997, and sadly it didn't really do much. They did tour this album, but due to lack of enthusiasm or whatnot, they canceled the American tour. So they played some dates in Europe, but never came to the U.S. So music on here is very good. But it's just it just comes in the bottom for me. It's not I don't want to call it boring, but it is a little boring. But all in all, it's not a favorite album of mine. There are a couple of really standout tracks on here. The title track, Calling All Stations, it opens up the album, and that is an excellent song. There's also another song called The Dividing Line. Another excellent song that really, I guess, harkens back to a lot of the more prog type music that Genesis did, and really, really good. So number 6, Calling All Stations. So coming at number 5, We Cant Dance. This is the last studio album with Phil Collins as the lead singer. It's got a lot of really good tracks on it, but then it's got several really out of character Genesis songs. They just don't really fit, in my opinion. But when this album came out in 1992, I was very, very excited getting a new Genesis album. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of very, very good moments on this, and I do really enjoy it. But there's too many tracks that fall into the bottom tier category that puts this album at number 5. So this is a 2-album release, or double album. So side 1 is great. It starts off with No Son of Mine, which was played on the radio a lot on MTV. Then it goes into Jesus He Knows Me, and then a nice longer story-based song called Driving the Last Spike. So really good. And then the rest of the album, there's a few other really good songs that I enjoy. One called Dreaming While You Sleep. That's a good song. Living Forever is a really good song. And the closing track, Fading Lights. Really, really great song. The other hit off of this album, if you will, is I Cant Dance. I think that song left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth. But I like the song. I don't really have much issue with it. Of course, it's very, very poppy, but it's fine for me. I don't mind it one bit. So that's number 5. We Can't Dance. So coming in at number 4, Abacab. So Abacab came out in 1981, and it was released with 4 cover variants, and I happen to have them all here. So Abacab marks the first album that Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks enter the studio with no previous material written. So they didn't bring in their own pieces of songs or finished songs or whatnot. They went to this studio with a clean slate and tried to start from scratch, just the 3 of them, and this is what came out. So very, very good album, but there's several songs on the second side for me that kind of knocks it down a couple of notches, which puts it at number 4 for me. So standout tracks, of course, the title track, Abacab, is great. Another radio release, No Reply at All. I enjoy that one. I think it's got a really awesome bass riff from Mike Rutherford, and it also introduced the Phoenix horns to the band. That's the horn section from Earth, Wind and Fire. Phil Collins invited them to play on that song, No Reply at All. Me and Sarah Jane, another great track, Keep It Dark. And then side 2 opens up with Dodo and then Lurker, which are really excellent songs in my opinion. That they kind of flow into each other, Dodo into Lurker, and Just love that one. And then the final 4 songs really, for me, knocks this album down a notch. Songs like Who Done It, Like It or Not, and Another Record drop it down for me. So that's number 4, Abacab.
So say you help me, mama, 'cause it's getting so hard. Oh, now I can keep you, mama.
So number 3, Genesis, the self-titled album. This came out in 1983. This is the second album that the 3 members, Phil Collins, Mike Rutherford, and Tony Banks, came into the studio with a clean slate, with nothing brought in, and they created this album from scratch. They just twiddled around and came up with some song ideas, and this is what came out. Now, I will have to say that for me, this is, I really don't understand this album cover. It never gelled with me. I'd probably rank it as my least favorite Genesis album cover. But the music is very solid on this. Got a lot of classic Genesis songs on here, hits, starting with the opening track, which was Mama. One of the best vocal performances from Phil Collins, in my opinion, on that track. And then actually side 1 of this album is just about as perfect album side that there is for them. I'll run down the tracks. It's Mama, and then That's All, which was another MTV and radio hit for them. And then it has Home by the Sea and Second Home by the Sea, which great tracks, and became staple in their live performances, highlight in their live shows. So side 1 is just awesome in my opinion. And then side 2 is good, just not as strong. So it's got another radio played song, Illegal Alien. Not a favorite of mine, but it's okay. The closing track, It's Gonna Get Better, is a nice ballad type song, which is not bad. And then songs like Silver Rainbow and Taking It All Too Hard and Just a Job to Do round out this album. So number 3, Genesis, Self-Titled. So number 2, Invisible Touch. Invisible Touch was released in 1986, and this catapulted Genesis into the most popular band probably in the world at this time. This album just really blew up, raced up the charts. They toured this album for a couple of years, and definitely has a sentimental importance to me. This is the tour that I first got to see Genesis live, and it happened to be my very first concert. So this album will always hold a place in my heart. So let's see. There really isn't a bad song on this album, in my opinion. The song In Too Deep is a slower song, and a slower love type song, and That's not really my thing, but it's a decent song. But the rest of the tracks on here are all great in my opinion, starting with the title track, Invisible Touch, um, going right into Tonight, 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 which really great song. Has an awesome instrumental section in the middle of that song that is really well done. Into the song Land of Confusion. Um, Side 2 opens with the song Anything She Does. A lot of people poo poo that song, but I really like it. It's got a really good fast pace to it, and I don't know, always enjoyed it. And then it goes into Domino, which is excellent song. It's a longer song with two parts. The first part being In the Glow of the Night, and then the second part being the last domino. Really, really enjoy that song. And then it goes into another radio hit for them, Throwing It All Away, and closes out with the instrumental The Brazilian. So, yeah, really enjoyable album. I know a lot of people don't rank this as high as I do, but I really do love this album. So for me, it's coming in at number 2. Invisible Touch. And number 1, Duke. This album really was my introduction to Genesis. Pardon me. The song on here, Misunderstanding, is when I first remember seeing and hearing Genesis. There was some evening show that I remember watching with my parents, like an Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight or something like that. And they showed the video for Misunderstanding. And for some reason I was just drawn to it right away. And ever since then, I've just loved the band. So this album came out in 1980. This is the second album that they put out as a 3-piece. So it was Tony Banks, Mike Rutherford, and Phil Collins. This kind of is starting to transition them into more shorter pop type songs. But it does have one of my absolute favorite songs called Duchess. It's a Tony Banks written song, and I just really, really love that song. So the album opens up with the song Behind the Lines, and kind of fades right into Duchess, which is just love it. And it's really the first time that Genesis used a drum machine, and that drum machine plays a pivotal part in the song Duchess. So yeah, there's, in my opinion, not a bad track on this album. It spawned several radio hits, including Turn It On Again and Misunderstanding. A song that Phil wrote for the first time, talking about his divorce, Please Don't Ask. It's a really sad song, but very beautifully written. Yeah, so the entire album from start to finish, I just absolutely love it. And it's got some really great instrumental songs on here. The final 2 tracks are called Duke's Travels and Duke's End. Just really awesome music. And Duke's End kind of echoes the opening Behind the Lines track. So yeah, Duke coming in at number 1. My favorite album from this period, and one of my favorite albums by Genesis. And of course, it's got a special attachment to me because it's the first time that I witnessed Genesis, and first time I heard them and saw them in that video, Misunderstanding. So that's my list. I'd love to hear where these albums rank in your opinion, so put them down in the comments below. I'd love to take a look at that. So that's going to do it. Thank you everyone for watching. I really appreciate watching this Genesis ranking series that I'm doing here. I'll have part 3 soon, and that is going to focus on all the official live releases that Genesis put out. So that should be interesting. So yeah, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. I hope everyone's doing well, and I'll talk to you again soon.